We just concluded 3 days with Cardinals at Winter Warm-Up, heard from the front office, ownership, players, and coaches about their expectations for the 2025 season, reflection on this offseason, reflection on maybe what's gone wrong over the past 5-10 years or so of Cardinals baseball, and what they're looking forward to in this next era. And so we're going to talk about our likes and dislikes from this year's Winter Warm-Up on this episode of Deal on the Card. Welcome back to Deal on the Cards, St. Louis Cardinals podcast. My name's Josh. This is Andrew. Oh, I do it wrong every time. This is Andrew. This is Sandy. We were just at Winter Warm-Up this past weekend. Andrew and I got the honor to be in the media room. This is my second year. Andrew, that was your first year, so I wanted to hear how you felt like your experience went. Obviously, the elephant in the room, which Mo acknowledged at the very beginning, was the Nolan Arenado fiasco, and this made it feel like a very different Winter Warm-Up than last year. There was a lot of unknowns and a lot of kind of sputtering. It feels like, okay, are things going to change? What's going to happen here? But I do think we can glean a lot from this Winter Warm-Up in an off-season that really hasn't offered us a lot to talk about. But before we jump into some of our likes and dislikes, I want to go ahead and thank our presenting sponsor of the podcast, which is 314 Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're located at 9640 All Boulevard in Olivet, open 10 to 5 Monday through Friday, 9 to 4 on Saturday. They buy, sell, and trade all sports cards and Pokemon cards. They have the newest selections of packs, boxes, single cards of local players and stars from around the league. Go check out 314 if you're collecting sports cards or other sports memorabilia. And also it's NFL playoffs, college basketball, NBA, all that stuff. And we're proud to be partnering with Underdog Sports. They're our favorite place to play fantasy sports. You got to check out Pick'em. It's so easy to play. You just pick out 2 to 8 stats of your favorite players or any players around the league. Choose whether they'll go higher or lower. You can win up to 20 times your money by going 5 for 5. If that sounds like fun, sign up with our promo code CARDS to get your first free pick, first free pick and first time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. We can't wait to see your entries. Again, you need to follow Sandy if you're in on the college basketball side of things, but obviously there'll be some big football games this weekend with the AFC and NFC Championship, Super Bowl coming up. You'll want to use Underdog to play fantasy there. So, Andrew, that was your first time in the media room this year. Let's get just like a quick, how did it feel to be in the room, and what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, it was fun. Obviously, appreciate the Cardinals for inviting me to join in this on the fun this year. It was cool seeing all the players that I've come to watch on TV. It was a little bit weird seeing some of them. They're mostly taller than I thought they would be. So they're large human beings. They're professional athletes, but yeah, it was cool to be able to ask some of them questions, shake some of their hands. Brendan Donovan has a very firm grip. Yeah, I don't know. It was cool just being able to see some of the writers at work that we look up to and that we've had on the show as Sandy tries to fix his lighting. I don't know what's going on.
Really pale
over there. But yeah, it was cool to meet everyone in person that I've seen, like through this screen a lot. Getting to spend time with Josh and hanging out with Sandy for a little bit as the media was chilled out a little bit on Saturday. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed most of the interviews. So we'll get into a couple of the ones that I didn't really like that much. I think it's mainly one towards the end, and then another one was like kind of whatever. But it was really cool seeing the players give their takes on just how excited they are to prove everyone wrong, which hopefully that includes me a little bit. Willson Contreras doesn't seem to like people like me very much. So, I mean, hey, if I can keep adding fuel to the fire, then I guess that works because he was really good last year too.
Yeah. So we're just going to throw out likes and dislikes, and they'll kind of form our categories as we're talking all the way through. But you mentioned it. I'm sure it's going to be a theme of all of our likes. But one thing I liked, and I'll attach it to a player, is the fire and excitement and the chip on their shoulders they have. And I'll specifically speak to Brendan Donovan on this one. He was kind of one of the rising stars of Winter Warm-Up last year, where people are like, hey, this guy seems to have not that people hadn't already observed that the year before, but really Mo DeWitt or Oli, some of the players that year were all kind of like would bring up Donovan as a guy who is in the text chains, who is helping make adjustments with players, who's keeping guys accountable, sharpening guys. And then we saw that through the 2024 season. He started that new rookie tradition of how to welcome new players to the roster. And then he came in with just a level of excitement and fire for the year. He clearly is excited to prove on the field. Like, I mean, he's in an arbitration process right now. He wants to make money. And so obviously he wants to continue to build on his personal success. He is fired up about this team and what they can do. And I think he's clearly ready to fill in some of those leadership shoes of Goldie that's passed, or like who's left and gone to the Yankees. He spoke super highly and was just like fired up about his passion for caring about military veterans and the support he could do there. He's going to start a charity this year and do his first charity event in St. Louis. So he's going to really plant those roots in the St. Louis community. I think Brendan Donovan is just one of the guys that Cardinal fans need to continue to get behind. And I think he's a guy that could be here for a very long time. And if I was to name one guy right now that deserves an extension, I think it's Brendan Donovan. You could throw Mason Wynn that category, I think, too. But Brendan Donovan feels like the heart and soul of this team. Do you guys agree, disagree with that?
I think I would extend Brendan Donovan if it was possible. And I think it is possible. So I'd love to see the Cardinals do something like that. I'm totally with you, though. He makes a ton of sense. The level of consistency, like the only knock on Donovan is that he's missed a lot of time over the last 2 seasons, but that's not really fair because he only missed time in 2023 because the team wasn't competitive and the Cardinals decided that it would be best for him to get surgery early so he'd be fully recovered before 2024. And then the time he missed in 2024, it wasn't like one of those nagging injuries you expect to bother players over long periods of time. It was just something that happened and he's better now and he's going to be back this year. So absolutely. The performance is unbelievable. Over 162, like his 162 average for WAR is almost 4, which is right on par with the best utility players in baseball. He's a super valuable guy.
Yeah, I mean, he impressed me with the way that he addressed the media and the way that other players spoke about him. It seems like a lot of the guys in that clubhouse seem to turn to him for leadership, and some of the younger guys that are maybe going to be coming up soon definitely could look to him as someone to model because he's a guy that plays the game the right way. He's always hustling, always trying to make every play at any position that he could be at next year. And I think it's important to have those kinds of voices in the clubhouse. Obviously, last year they brought in a lot of external pieces to help with that. And I mean, it was an improvement over 2023, but it's not really sustainable to be bringing in guys like that every single year, especially because like eventually you're going to just run out of guys that have won with the franchise because, you know, like other than Matt Carpenter, like, and Lance Lynn, like who else from that team is even really around anymore? Like half of those guys are coaching now, like who were on the 2011 roster that are still with the team, like Descalso and John Jay, like they're on the coaching staff now. So like eventually you're going to run out of those guys. So you need people within your own organization to step up. And I'm happy to see that that's the role that he's taking. And is one of the more impressive interviews from the week, I think.
Yeah, I think multiple people said it, and I'd been thinking it, like the way he talks, Brendan Donovan seems like he's either going to be a manager one day or he's going to go and be a commander somewhere. Like he's just got that presence about him. Again, he's a guy that you probably want to root for. Like if he's on your side, you want to follow that guy, but he's also not like a buddy. Like he's not just a buddy guy. Like he cares about his teammates. He invests in them. He's kind toward them, but he's also going to hold them accountable. And you need that kind of leader in your clubhouse. And he doesn't have to be the very best player on the team to do something like that. He's clearly already garnered the respect of veterans, coaches, and young players. Let him lead. Andrew, what's something you liked or disliked from the weekend?
I didn't like the way the DeWitts handled the media, if I'm being honest. We're getting some comments on that interview that we posted that we asked softball questions. I didn't ask a single question to DeWitts. I wanted to, but it seems like the other like writers and whoever was in the room basically had their attention the whole time. So it was tough to get a question in there. I mean, it feels like they're still living in like 2014 where they're like, yeah, the team's been really good recently. And like there's been like playoff series wins, and there's been one playoff series win in the last 10 years. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think It was the 2019 NLDS, I think.
Yeah, that's all I can think of.
So, like, what really have you done in the last 10 years? And to talk about the ebbs and flows of payroll, and I understand that that's something that other teams do, but they've set a precedent for themselves, and like it's not the fans' fault to expect it. They've set a precedent. They've said it multiple times that this team will never go through something like they are right now, and clearly that's changed. They said that they've lost money a couple times in some of the recent seasons, which, I mean, if you crunch the numbers a certain way, I'm sure like they can find a way to make it so that that's true. But I find that a little bit hard to believe based on just what I've seen on attendance numbers, and they've had a TV deal up until the last year. Like maybe they lost money last season, but to stretch it out and to like find a way to make it so that they've lost money in previous seasons seems a little bit disingenuous to me.
Well, I think it's fair to say COVID they lost money.
I'm sure that
2021 they probably lost money too because you've reduced crowds. Like so, I'm not going to quarrel with them on that. It doesn't change.
No, and I'm sure there are ways to calculate it where that they're not lying. I'm not accusing them of lying about that. I'm just saying that some of the ways that they might have come to those conclusions seem a little bit manipulative and maybe not as like, I don't know. I don't want to get in trouble with the organization for saying that because I mean I don't know. I don't see their spending and all of that, but
and I'm not saying I'm not disagreeing with you in terms of being frustrated about their response for saying why they're not going to spend. Like you can still spend while you're losing money, and I think Derek Gould tried to push him on that.
Right.
Or was Jeff, one of them, Jeff or Derek was like,
and you have to spend money to make money.
Yeah.
Like,
but then I think it was Jeff was like, are you willing to like go years where you lose money? Like it just we get you can lose money because it's a business and it's probably impossible to run a team like this and be successful. It's I don't see a way you run a baseball team unless you are the Dodgers and you figured out how to calculate or how to just have this well-oiled machine where you're going to make money every single year. But if you're going to be in a market like St. Louis and you want to compete with the big boys, you're going to have to lose money, not every year, but some years. And I think it was a fair question from Jeff to ask, like, are you willing to put your money where your mouth is and lose money to get this back on track? Right. It seemed like they were kind of, and that's where they got flip-floppy. And I agree. It wasn't a great answer.
Well, I'm sure they like, okay, to be perfectly fair, like they probably did lose money over COVID, but to like say that was like something that can happen again, where it was like clearly a very one-time thing where they won't be unless like, you know, like that seems very isolated to be like, yeah, we lost money this one time when there was a global pandemic.
Okay, but think about they're 5 years into the decade. The first year is the pandemic. Second year is coming out of the pandemic, so it's reduced crowds. 2022, which obviously was a huge year for them. Yeah, okay, so that's one. But then 2023, their worst season in basically franchise history, and then 2024 when the crowd started to diminish. That's 4 of the 5 years this decade we can name.
In attendance in 2023.
But attendance isn't the only thing for revenue. Like
they made it clear that was very important.
Yes, true. My point is, I don't think we need to like sit and quarrel about if they lost money or not. It doesn't matter if they did or they didn't. What are they going to do about that? And clearly, their stance is, if we feel like we're losing money, then we're going to reduce payroll. Unless we think we have a chance to win a World Series, then maybe we'll invest more. And I think this year, I don't care as much about the payroll number because we agree it's a reset, and I think that's much needed. And the player development side of things is important. And it seems like from both Mo and the DeWitts, they are insistent that they are not against. Well, Mo said he expects payroll to go up. The DeWitts wouldn't commit to it. They said, well, you never know year to year, right? But they left the door open and made it seem like, yeah, we will reinvest in the club when we feel like we're competitive. But yeah, they were asked about how do you maintain this 20-year plus run of winning, and they seem to kind of seem to think they're going to have to go in these cycles a little bit more than they used to. Of like sometimes we're going to have to drop payroll to rebuild this thing, which is just something that never really did before. I think it's frustrating.
I'm going to go ahead and kick this person out.
Sandy, I mean, just you're hearing all that. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't think Andrew and I disagree. I just disagree. Yeah. Like, I don't think we need to like.
I'm getting
count their books right now, but
into semantics. Yeah. But it feels like they're trying to find ways to not spend money rather than trying to find ways to make their team good.
Yes.
just one more thing to jump in on that. It's like the Cardinals, even though they may be like losing money, ownership can be losing like revenue. The team is still increasing in value rapidly. Like, I just want to point out that when the DeWitts became the majority owners in 1996, the Cardinals were worth $190 million. They're now worth roughly $2.7 billion. So this team has more than dodectupled in value, right? Like literally by 12. I mean, it's pretty insane to have anybody out here talking about lost revenue. So that definitely gets on my nerves to hear about that. But something that I didn't like from this weekend, actually, I'll do two quick hitters real quick. Something I liked, a lot of stuff was free to get into, so I really enjoyed that. I think they had to do that. They had to have people coming in for free because admission to Winter Warm-Up, who's going to pay for that in a year like this where there's not a ton of excitement in the fan base? So it was nice that they made things free. If you're interested in learning more about that, Derek Gould was talking about it on Twitter. But basically access to main stage entertainment in Ballpark Village, exec interviews there, all free. So people could come in and hear what they wanted to hear very easily, which I really liked. But one thing that's annoying to me, and this probably just affects me and Andrew and maybe a couple other people, I hate that they have it so late in the calendar. Like, why do we have winter warm-up so far after the holidays when everyone's going back to school? For me, that stinks because I had to go back down to Waco in the middle of the weekend. So I wasn't even able to ask for, the type of credentials to get in where you guys were because I was going to be leaving after the first day of the event. So I was bummed out to miss so much the event. But overall, like, I still had a lot of fun there. And if you haven't been out to Winter Warm-Up, you really should. I didn't really know what it was before I attended last year for the first time. But I mean, basically you just show up to the stadium, you walk around. There are a lot of cool people there that you can talk to, that you can meet. Obviously there's a lot going on down in the press room, but all that's being streamed throughout the stadium. So you can go, there's different pop-up shops to walk by. So, 314 was there. So you could go by, talk to Devin, maybe buy some cards. I've acquired some fun merchandise from there in the last years too. They literally sell everything at Winter Warm-Up. So I guess is the event as a whole. I think it's really fun. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out.
I can't believe you didn't buy the John King sign. That was 20.
I really thought about it.
It was crazy.
For reference, what Andrew's talking about, like, they literally sell everything. They sell the locker placards. They sell the stuff that they attach to the trucks that drive around on opening day. The signs they attach to those to show you who's who. There's a ton of sign stuff, really weird stuff.
I think it's important that we note too, like, it's Cardinals Care Winter Warm-Up. It's like the stuff they're selling for that. They market as all the proceeds go toward Cardinals Care too, which I think is a really cool thing. Like, it's not like it's not just like a cash cow weekend for the DeWitts. And I'm not that you're saying that, but I think that's a cool part to add to it too, is that they're raising money for charity and stuff too. So it's a cool way to meet the team and get the pulse on things, but also support good causes with that as well. So something that I didn't like, and again, I'm back to last time, going back to the thing earlier, I was not disagreeing with Andrew that the DeWitt stuff was frustrating. Just counting the books, I was like, I don't know if we need to do that. But speaking of money, how the Cardinals have handled Ryan Helsley over the last few years is a major dislike for me, specifically in how they continue to go to arbitration with him. And I mean, obviously they settled this year. He came out and talked at Winter Warm-Up and was like, basically, your employers are calling you terrible at your job, and when you're going through arbitration, and that it really frustrated him. And just if you go watch the interview on our channel, he doesn't sound like a guy who really envisions himself being in St. Louis beyond this year. He said he was excited that he didn't get traded. He was fully anticipating being traded. He thought when he got the call that he was not going to be traded, that when they said, hey, we're planning on keeping you, that his agent said that. He thought his agent was calling him to say, hey, you've been traded. Like, he's fully expecting to be gone. And so he's glad he's here, but I just think the Cardinals have clearly, I don't know what the deal is with Ryan Helsley and them. I wish him the best in his career. I think most of us agree at some point this year, they probably need to trade him if they want to capitalize on this reset and hopefully increase the farm system going forward. But he's a guy that they developed, and he should be a closer for them for a long time, or potentially starting pitcher, just saying. But they've really hurt that relationship, and I just don't envision him wanting to be here. And that's the bigger thing. It's not that fact that he couldn't be here, because even if he wanted to be here, you probably need to trade him. But it's the fact that you've had a guy like this that you should treat him well and make him want to be here, make it hard for him to leave. And instead it feels like he's even if the Cardinals were going to make a competitive offer, I bet he would want to choose elsewhere. So that was a dislike for me. Any Andrew, any more dislikes from you?
Yeah, I really liked how Willson Contreras handled the situation. He said that, well, maybe he was calling out one of his teammates, but he said something about only like a coward would want out of this, and he felt really upset that there were people that were doubting how this team was going to be going into this season. And obviously, I'm one of the people that doesn't necessarily think that this team is going to, go places, especially in the National League where there's teams that are spending like 4 times as much money as the Cardinals next year, and literally got the number 1 prospect in baseball for free yesterday or the other day. That's a different story, but I don't see where this team is going. But Willson mentioned how he takes that as fuel and something that motivates him and makes him upset and angry. And I think that's great. A great way for the players to look at it. And obviously, I want the team to win and I want the team to do well. And it's good to see that, like, he was probably the player that I was most impressed with his motivation. There were a lot of other players that expressed similar sentiments. I think Mason Wynn, Lars Nootbaar were a couple of the ones that stood out as well, both with something to prove and just show that you could play a full season or keep up the production that you've had. Alec Burleson as well was a guy that was disappointed with the way his second half went and is just motivated to be better and prove everyone wrong that he can do it in a full season and has the confidence now that he has done it for a half of the season, that he can continue doing that for a whole year. And it's exciting to see all these players show a little bit of passion. It seems like, I don't know, like, I'm sure Goldie like really, really cared about this organization, but he seemed like a quieter guy in the clubhouse. Kind of would be the same whether or not he was playing well. And it's refreshing to see guys that will really show that that they're motivated to continue playing well or to start playing well and to prove themselves at this level. Because that's what you need. It makes for a more exciting product. And I don't know, Willson Contreras, his interview today really impressed me as something that I really want to see out of everyone. And he's the leader of the clubhouse now. And whether or not he was calling out Nolan Arenado as somebody who didn't want to stay and probably won't stay, well, coin flip, right? But yeah. It's frustrating.
Well, I mean, to your point, like, even you name Nootbaar, Donovan, Wynn, guys like that, like, they don't really have a choice to be here, so like they have to be excited, even though I think they are excited. But like Willson Contreras, Mo was clear, like, if he wanted to trade, there were other teams who were calling, asking us, even after the fact he said no, that like, hey, is Willson Contreras available? He could have easily left town. Willson even said himself, the easy thing to do would have been to request a trade. Sandy, I don't know if you got to hear the press conference yet, and I know you haven't caught up a lot today, but he had said basically that when he signed in St. Louis, he told himself he wanted to leave the Cardinals better when his contract was up, not 2 years in and request a trade. When his contract was up, he wanted to leave the club better than he found it. And he said that getting a trade would be the easy way out. He loved his teammates way too much. At the end of the season, even before they announced the reset, Nootbaar asked him where his headspace was at. He's like, man, I'm here. I want to support these guys. I'm in this clubhouse. I want to lead. I want to make this thing going. Remember those comments at the end of the season? He called out the front office. He acknowledged those and said, like, hey, like, I was afraid after I called out the front office that they're going to want to trade me. And instead, they came to me and were like, hey, we would love to have you be here. And he literally goes, I said, yes. Like, he's like, I want to be here. And then he also didn't pull back punches. Like Jeff Jones, I think, tweeted out, like, he said, he's like, I kind of agree with the philosophy of rebuilding the farm system, because he says the farm system sucks right now. He like said it out loud. He laughed. He was like, I have to be honest, like the infrastructure there was bad. And so like, I get why they're doing that. And so it's really cool to have a guy like Contreras, who had every opportunity to leave and go play for a contender, say, hey, I want to be here. I'm up for the challenge. I see where the vision is going. Doesn't mean he fully agrees with it, because obviously he called out the front office, said he wanted additions to the roster, but he's ready for this. And anyone who's doubting him moving to first base, he's like, I want to prove him wrong and be a top 5 first base. Like he's built for this. So Sandy, when you hear all of that, does that like fire you up?
Yeah, and it makes me think of a comment Arenado made after the 2023 season, going back to what Andrew was saying especially, but also what you're saying about Contreras here and the contrast you can draw between Arenado and Goldschmidt's leadership and hopefully the new incoming Contreras regime. Look at that. It's inauguration day for the U.S. It's also inauguration time for the Cardinals. A new regime of leadership really is coming in here. I know you like that little transition there.
I like that.
When you're thinking about like Arenado was talking about how the young guys took over. And I feel like most teams, when you hear that, you're like, isn't that a good thing? And he was talking about it as if it was this bad thing. Yeah. Like they're asking us all these questions and the dugout is too youthful and fun. And it's like, shut up. Okay. I'm happy to have guys like Donovan now stepping into leadership roles. And especially Contreras, I want him to be the loudest voice in the clubhouse this year because that's how he is. And instead of pushing people away, he's going to welcome that. Like if you've watched Contreras and if you know the kind of person he is, he's going to welcome that. And so it's really great. And I think being able, like it's not Arenado and Goldschmidt's fault because they couldn't lead the team well. It's their fault because they performed so poorly over the last 2 years. But it's not their fault for not being, perfect leaders. It's really hard to do that. I'm sure it's really difficult at the big league level to do that. But it is nice to have these other guys who are going to welcome the challenge of mentoring young players. They're going to be excited for these guys. They're going to want them to grow and succeed. And they're going to do a great job of bringing them along. So for me, it's just a huge difference.
Yeah, to transition off that alike, and you kind of already alluded to it, is how Sonny Gray, he goes out, he calls it, this is the young guys team. And I'm excited to come alongside them and help them out. But like it is up to the Donovans and the Newbars and the Wins to lead this team going forward. He's not taking a back seat, obviously. Like if you've listened to Sonny Gray, he's a guy who's going to let you know what he thinks. But he is not the mentality of we need more veterans in the clubhouse. And I don't want to have to I don't want to have to coach all the guys and try to play. I want to like have veterans on the roster who can handle that for me. So I can focus on just being me. He's like, no, I love being the best at what I can be. He was excited about how he played last year, but he thinks he can be even better next year. And he's focused on rebounding from some of the ways he fell back. At the same time, he wants to also help Michael McGreevy, Andre Palante, Quinn Matthews, Tink Hens along the way. So that's a refreshing mentality. And then also Sonny Gray, like he was also brutally honest, like Willson Contreras was, where people asked him like, okay, like, but did you actually consider leaving? And he said, yeah, I thought about it. And, but I wanted to stay here. But he was also like, I spent a year with this organization and coming in, I had thoughts about what being a Cardinal would be like. And by the end, I saw some of the flaws and I saw some of the changes that need to be made. And he said, they need a reset. He said there are some things that he looked at and it's like, they need like just firsthand experience. Things need to change, especially on the pitching development. Someone asked him specifically, because he was like, and you can tell he's not a social media guy. He's not super plugged in. So he's like, what are the things they're saying? He's like, I think they're doing this. And reporters like, yes, that's what they've said. And then he was like, and I think, what are they wanting to prioritize? Someone said pitching development. And then he basically was like, yeah, if that's what they're doing in 10 years, the Cardinals, like over the next 10 years, the Cardinals are going to get back to being who they were. I don't think he's saying 10 years from now it'll take that long, but he was adamant to say it. And he's a guy where if Sonny Gray, he only has 2 years on his contract. He shouldn't have to care about the 2030 Cardinals look like, but he sees the big picture of if they get this farm system figured out again, this team is going to get back to what they were. And he's fully supportive of that. And so it's incredible to have some veterans in there. And I'm not mad at Nato for wanting out. Like I get it, but it's incredible to have some guys who stay and see the vision. And they're also not like just saying the company order, right? Like both of them have said pointed things publicly about the Cardinals front office and what has happened since being Cardinals, but they still support and want to be in that direction. I think that's a great thing to have in your clubhouse.
I think it's really cool. It's really unique to have guys like that who stick around. It kind of makes me think about the Cubs of like the early 2010s. Like some of those those were some bad teams, but there were some veterans or at least like really strong players that stuck around there for a long time on those teams that made them watchable for Cubs fans. And I don't know, they were there when that youth movement in 2016, like Anthony Rizzo had already been there for a few years when those guys came up. Starlin Castro had a couple really good seasons for the Cubs in between there in that transition period. And so, yeah, like the Cardinals having some of these very, very strong veterans still during these transition years is really nice. And we need to appreciate them for that, because especially in modern baseball, it seems like guys are interested in winning and making money. And that makes a lot of sense. Like, that's what you're supposed to be interested in as a player. But to have guys, like you said, Gray and Contreras, who have the top-down view and really do care about the organization and the fans, that's really special.
Yeah. Another dislike. Do either of you guys have one you want to throw in there?
I like that Quinn Matthews likes crypto. I think that was hilarious.
All right, let's do the Quinn Matthews thing. Andrew, you were in the room for that. I had to watch it later since I wasn't there on Saturday or on Sunday. But what was the vibe of Quinn Matthews?
Yeah, he's a weird guy. Like, he didn't want to be a baseball player growing up, which, I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know anyone who I don't know any guys who don't want to be a professional athlete. Like, I know investment bankers who were like, yeah, if I had the talent to play basketball, like I'd be in the NBA instead. And it's like, I don't know. He instead of wanting to be a professional baseball player, wanted to be an investment banker. And it's like, well, that's odd. I guess, I don't know. That shows us that, like, in earlier stages of his life, baseball wasn't necessarily the most important thing to him. And he was at Stanford, which is a highly competitive school academically, and he was still throwing 92 miles an hour. Is that how hard he was throwing when he was drafted?
It was low. It was like 90, 91, 92.
91.
Yeah,
But he would still have the talent to do that, which is crazy. And now that he loves competing, and that's what drew him into baseball, and then he got drafted. Like, now that he can focus his whole life on baseball, and that's what drives him to be better. Like, I can only imagine how good of a player he can eventually develop into. And that's really exciting that the Cardinals were able to spot that and pick up on it. And, he really doesn't like the way that his season ended. And he spent the entire offseason with the chip on his shoulder and being like, I can't deal with that. And Michael McGreevy, I think, who knows him pretty well, and I'm pretty sure they grew up in the same area, and Michael McGreevy got a hit off Quinn Matthews. So maybe Michael McGreevy is my new favorite player. I don't know. Hey, if he can hit like that, then maybe he the Cardinals should anyway. But
is he the next Zach Greinke? The
maybe.
Odd personality, or Nikola Jokic of baseball?
Hey, if he turns into Zach Greinke, I'll be very happy. I think he seemed a little bit more friendly in his interview than Zach Greinke did. And
true. I think more like they mean like the oddball mentality.
Yeah. But I don't know. He just wants to win, and that's a mentality that is really good to see out of a prospect. I didn't know a lot about Matthews going into this. Obviously, I know how well his season went, but I didn't know anything about him as a person. And it seems like he has that fire to be better. And McGreevy was talking about how I think in AAA, Quinn was just really upset every day, and he had to kind of calm him down. It's like, what was wrong with this guy? Why is he upset? He's gone from high A to AAA in one season, which never happens, and is still going to win, or low A, I guess. But he's just that kind of person who wants to win and gets angry when he doesn't. And there's some players where that clearly doesn't work for, like Nolan Arenado. But I feel like for Quinn, it seems to me that that it will work for him. And you can kind of tell Arenado gets really angry in a certain way that's a little bit different than how Quinn was. And I enjoy that. And I don't know, maybe if the Cardinals put all of their payroll into Bitcoin, then they'll double in value next year, and they'll be able to become the Dodgers. Who knows?
It'd be very Cardinals that the second they did that, it'd crash, and it'd be like,
hey, you just got to have Mo reminded me that you just got to have patience, when you're trading.
That's true.
So,
hey, speaking of Mo and speaking of rotation options, something I did not like is that Mo does not want to trade any of the veteran starters. Kind of over that part. The reasons he gave of you never have enough starting pitching, guys will go down in spring training, all that kind of stuff. I was like, okay, yeah, you're right. But even after, let's just say in a world where they keep Sonny Gray, Andre Palante, and Miles Michaelis, which is three guys right there, and it's okay, we clearly know those guys. They're not moving Michaelis early in the season. You've got Quinn Matthews. You've got Zach Thompson. You've got Matthew Liberatore. You've got Michael McGreevy. You've got Tink Hence. You've got Semper Bursa. You've got Gordon Graceffo. Like you don't have just one or two guys that you even have Drew Rom. Okay, I'm not saying you don't want that to happen, but like you have guys that you could throw out there. If it's really about development, if it's really about giving chances, you have plenty of starting options to part with at least one of Fedde or Matt to get some value back. And so their insistence on, we know we need to hold on to these guys because we don't have enough spots. They could prove me wrong in spring training, and they could let, like, let's say McGreevy and Matthews both excel, and they could theoretically move Matt to the bullpen and do something with Michaelis and start those two guys. And if they do that, I'll be like, you know what? You proved me wrong. You did the right thing. I don't trust them to do the right thing. If they have all the five of those guys on the roster, I think they're going to hold on to him for too long. And then Michaelis is going to be going into June with a 6.3 ERA when Quinn Matthews is ready to go. And they're like, man, do we really want to DFA Michaelis? I don't know. Like, you can move a starter, especially Eric Fedde. So I just, that annoyed me.
Well, I mean, Mo did make a good point where it was like, don't press it.
But,
he did make a good point where, like, injuries do happen, and like he didn't name names, but he said that certain guys haven't been able to go pole to pole. Steven Matz.
Then trade that guy.
Yeah. And I was like, that was my point. I was like, well, you're not counting on all of them being healthy, and you might have to make tough decisions. I think Oli might have mentioned that today too, where it's like, yeah, these starting pitchers might not all make it through spring training. And that's totally understandable, but just trade Steven Matz. Like, please. Like, apparently, allegedly, teams have called on Steven Matz, right? And just get rid of him. He hasn't done anything really, like, for the Cardinals. And, like, his interview was probably one of, I don't know. I was sitting in the back for that. I was uploading some of the other ones, but I don't know. Maybe he's just a quieter guy. And he didn't seem as, like, driven as some of the other guys, or a little bit, like, I don't know. I don't want to, like, assume that, like, anything about his work ethic or anything, but like he did mention that he does want to prove like his contract will be like worth it or whatever. But I think we're a little bit past that, right? Like, I think like it's year 4 now of Steven Matz here, and like he hasn't played pole to pole a single time. Like, he's gotten hurt by June, like every season he's played here. And like, if there's teams that are willing to take him, and like, please, like, just go ahead and let him go.
Here's the thing, though. I'd rather hold on to Matz. I'd rather hold on to Matz and trade Eric Fedde, because you can get something for Eric Fedde. Matz, you're just moving money. And like, let's say you hold on to Matz, then your rotation right now stacks up to be Gray, Palante, Michaelis. You get rid of Fedde, not Matz. It'd be Gray, Palante, Michaelis, Matz, and McGreevy. And you would still have, I named 9 other guys that could start. And obviously, I didn't name all 9 other guys, but some of the guys I named in my thing today where I reflected on it was Roby, Jerpy, and Hens. So like really 6 other guys, because those 3 guys are wild cards. If you want to take Quinn Matthews out of it because you're going to want to rush him, so he's like potentially could work, okay, then you have 5 other guys that you could throw in there. Because again, if this year was about you have to make the playoffs, then having Semper Bursa or Zach Thompson or Matthew Liberatore as your next man up, not the best idea in the world. But if the theme of the year is opportunity, then give opportunity to these guys that aren't going to get opportunity otherwise. And then if Quinn Matthews is ready, then no one's going to stop him. Semper Bursa is not going to stop Quinn Matthews to be in the rotation. You know who might, though? Eric Fedde. You know who might, though? Miles Michaelis. You know who kind of could? Steven Matz. And that's the thing I'm frustrated by with it. So that's why I said I understood the reasoning of it, that yes, guys get injured, but they have plenty of depth options. And again, they've made it clear that they're more concerned about development and giving guys a runway, and they don't want to tank. But I don't think you're tanking by getting rid of just Eric Fedde. I think you're giving opportunity, and you might be a little bit worse, or you are getting better because you let the young guys play. I don't like it. So
I don't like it either. I would rather them trade both of them, but I feel like you've got to trade one. Like
Fedde.
Yeah, it should be Fedde, because Fedde's going to bring back real value. And for me, I look at this Cardinals team and I'm thinking, whether they have Eric Fedde or not, I don't think the team is that different. Like, if the Cardinals get rid of Eric Fedde, how much worse are they really? Maybe 3 games.
I mean, you lose stability. So
yeah,
I mean, you think stability. We've only seen one good year, and I think he'll be good, but you guys risk.
I mean, Fetty with the Cardinals last year, though, was nothing to write home about either.
It was better than people think. He has sub 4 ERA. It was like 3.6 or something.
Was it?
Yeah, but he was also.
Everyone remembers the first the first start at Wrigley was bad, and so everyone's like Eric Fetty was bad. But he had his first 2 starts overall weren't great, and I think he had 10 starts. His last 8 were like a sub 3 ERA. It was like a 2.7 or something, and then with the Cardinals, it was a 3.7. So like, it's not amazing, but that's a number 3 starter.
Yeah, but with the Cardinals, like he only pitched into the 6th inning a few times, and he only pitched into the 7th inning once, which was the last start of the season against Colorado. Like, I don't know.
It was at Colorado though, so that's not.
It's fine.
Yeah,
it's still Colorado. It doesn't matter where you play the Colorado Rockies lineup; they suck anywhere on the planet because they're terrible. The point is, Eric Fetty is fine, but I think trading him, even if you're worried about the team being worse, I think they're marginally worse at the very worst, and at the very best, you're bringing back value that's going to help you in the future because he would get real prospects from another team. And you're opening up spots for your young players to play, which could help you a lot in the future. I do think it'd be the right move. And yeah, if you're the penny pinching Cardinals and you're so worried about revenue, whatever, like you can trade him and make a little bit of money back. Trade both of them, make all the money back, and then give more opportunities to other guys. Like, to be honest, I really don't know what the difference between Miles Mikolas and Matthew Liberatore would be this year in the rotation. Like, Libby has way more upside than Mikolas does coming into this year. I just don't get why the Cardinals seem like they do this thing though, where it's like, if I'm paying you, you're going to play no matter how bad you are. Like, welcome to the Paul DeYoung experience. The Jay, like, oh my gosh, the Dexter Fowler experience. Like, for multiple years, Fowler was terrible, and the Cardinals continued to trot him out there because they were paying him. That's what it's going to be with Mikolas this year. That's what it's going to be with Matz. And that's what makes me almost not believe that they will give opportunities to young players, especially if Matz Mikolas aren't awful, if they're just bad. Like, if Mikolas has a sub 5 ERA, he pitches the whole season in the rotation.
Probably.
I mean, if anything, I'm rooting for one of the two to get hurt, right? Like, which is bad because you want like that. That's what they're encouraging. I mean, like,
I get what you mean.
Like,
I get what you mean.
What you're saying.
Like, I mean, I want them to, like, I don't want anyone to get hurt, but I'm saying it's almost what they're encouraging, like some of the fans who want this youth movement to be like, if you want McGreevy to get a start, then Matz or Mikolas has to get hurt. That's essentially what they said, right? Yeah. Or like,
if McGreevy's not in the opening day rotation, though, barring an injury or a terrible spring, if McGreevy's not in the opening day rotation, that's inexcusable. After how great he was in the small sample last year, after how awesome he was in the minor leagues last year too, it seems like he really figured something out, and you have to let that guy go. You have to let him pitch. I just can't imagine. Well, I can't imagine because I've seen it happen. I've seen them give Dexter Fowler opportunities over intriguing young outfielders over and over again.
And again, the thing this year, like back then, it's like, okay, the expectation every year was to make the playoffs. And even though when they signed Dexter Fowler, I was annoyed by him. It's not revisionist history. I was like, I was out on Dexter Fowler from the beginning. You had young outfielders, go get the Bryce Harper or don't sign a Dexter Fowler. Like, that didn't make sense to me. Here's what's going to happen if they run with the veteran rotation this year. Even if there's injuries, I get it. There will be opportunities for other people. You know what we're going to be saying next January? I don't know what Gordon Graceffo is. I don't know if Matthew Liberatore can start. I don't know if Semper Bursa can start. And it's a never-ending cycle of these B tier, C tier, D tier guys that they're not like the top prospects.
They'll have 3 starters coming off the books, so that won't be a problem.
But here's the thing: they won't, like, how are they going to confidently say Semper Bursa can go into the rotation, or Gordon Graceffo can go into the rotation, or Matthew Liberatore can, or Takeo Roby, or these guys? Like, you got to give them the opportunities, and they continuously have shown that they're too hesitant to bank on them going into a year. And this is the year to just give them the opportunities, and they're not doing it, and it's frustrating. They could prove me wrong, and if they prove me wrong, I'll come back and say, you know what, this is how I thought they would go based on history. But Michael McGreevy pitched great in spring, and they put Matz in the bullpen even though he was healthy. And a month into the year, they DFA'd Mikolas, and they put Quinn Matthews in the rotation. I would clap my hands and be, Cardinals, you handled that better than I thought you did. It still should have made a trade, but you proved me wrong. I don't think I'm going to get proven wrong, though, if they're held there. And sure, maybe Mikolas and Matz get hurt, and then we never have this conversation, and it didn't affect them. But I'm just annoyed. about the it's not even just opportunities for Matthews and McGreevy. We need to know what Summer Bursa is. We need to know what Gordon Graceffo is. We need to know what these guys are, so that going forward, if you have actual depth. I'm not saying Roberts is going to turn into a number 3 starter, but is he a swing man? Is he a 5? Is he a guy that can get you 5 starts in the middle of the summer when someone goes down? Again, we don't know. And I'm not sure we're going to find out this year. And that's my frustration.
I don't think we will. I don't think we will, because the Cardinals had they had a very similar dilemma in the late 2010s, right? Like Dexter Fowler came over, and in 2018, he was among the worst 3 players in baseball, or at least in the National League. Negative 1.4 WAR, 59 OPS plus. They still trotted him out there for 90 games. They had to fake an injury, basically. 334 plate appearances. I mean, he was completely dreadful. The following year, the young right fielders in the system included a guy named Dylan Carlson, who was knocking down the door at AAA. Other guys who were looking for opportunities included Tyler O'Neill. They included Randy Arozarena, who came up at the end of that year and had a 135 OPS plus in 19 games. And you know what the Cardinals did? They continued to give Dexter Fowler plate appearances until they were finally able to phantom IL him before bringing him back in 2020 and giving him more opportunities at the cost of Dylan Carlson during his actual rookie campaign. They moved out Randy Arozarena. I think they've been willing to cut bait on, I know that there were other extenuating circumstances with the Randy Arozarena trade, maybe the filming of the locker room celebration, whatever. I don't buy that. I think it's BS. But had they not decided to stay with Fowler, maybe they would have kept Arozarena, thinking we need this outfield space. O'Neill could have gotten more consistent playing time. Like, the fact that they committed to this guy it's literally just because they were paying him. And he was okay in 2019. He was worth like 1 WAR, league average hitter. I guess he bounced back from being the worst player in the division. But yeah, when I see that, it gives me absolutely no hope that things will be different this time around. I know the team was more competitive in 2019 than they are next year. But were they really? They were coming off of 3 consecutive missed postseasons. There was no reason to suspect that the Cubs were going to be as bad as they were in 2019 and open the door for the Cardinals. They still had that big young core. So yeah, it's incredibly frustrating to look back at that. And you're absolutely right. I don't think we're going to know what we have in Summer Bursa at the end of this year. And I do think we'll know exactly what we have in Miles Mikolas and Steven Matz.
It's a great example of it, in my opinion, is that they had Michael McGreevy come up in August and show out, and then they sent him back to AAA. And then they waited till the end of September. In the moment when they sent him back down, I got it. They were still in the playoff race. They had a full rotation. They needed him for the day. It was 1 start. They waited and waited and waited, even after they were basically out of contention, to bring McGreevy back up. Then they do. He gets 2 more starts, and he's lights out again. And it's like, and now they're coming into 2025 being like, we don't know if he's legit. He's got to earn a spot. It's like, you know what? You could have found out even more information in September, but you chose not to. That's what I'm frustrated by with it. Let's keep it going. We're about 50 minutes. I think I don't know how much you guys caught it, but Brent Brown was getting raving reviews from Cardinals hitters. And it wasn't just the stuff of like, oh yeah, I like him, and saying like player talk stuff. They were giving specific feedback. Like Newbar called him a rat, and he's like, this guy just thinks hitting all the time. He's sending me videos. We haven't met in person yet, but we know each other because we're constantly texting, FaceTiming, video calls together. He's worked with Walker in person. He's worked with Victor Scott. Like almost every hitter had a story of how Brent Brown has already been impacting their development. And you could see the giddiness on Jordan Walker about how excited he is about his swing this year, which seems very different from his conversations last year and the year before, where he always kind of seemed like he was a little bit frustrated by the process. I think this is a really encouraging thing. At the end of the day, we're going to have to see what the results are. But so far, it really feels like this Brent Brown hire was a necessary shift from the Turner Ward side of things. And hopefully he's going to help unlock a Nolan Gorman, a Jordan Walker, a Victor Scott. Did you guys buy much stock in the Brent Brown side of things, or is it mostly just, it's interesting to hear, but like, I'll believe it when I see it?
Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. I mean, I don't know. Sandy's probably going to get really excited. But
I think I'm excited about it.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's good to see that Jordan Walker. I mean, Nolan Gorman wasn't that winter warm up, which is
but I mean, it's been talked about this offseason that him and Brown have worked a lot together.
So, I mean, I would have liked to get to talk to Gorman, but he probably would have just been like, "Yeah, my offseason's good," and then
he gives very short answers.
But yeah, I think It's exciting for sure to have a change and to bring in an external voice. But not all external voices are good, right? Like look at the White Sox, you could hire someone from there. And obviously Brent Brown came from the Dodgers and from wherever, but he also came from the Mariners, who have one of the worst offenses in baseball. So it's a little bit mixed on that still. But yeah, I'm glad that the players are enjoying it. And like the thing is, Paul Goldschmidt and Orlin Arenado are really close with Turner Ward, and that didn't go so well. So I'm not quite sold on that idea yet, but we'll see. We'll see come spring. We'll see come opening day how it goes, because that's what really matters, right? And hey, I'm gonna be really paying attention to that spring training the stat line this year, because they went like 2 weeks without hitting a home run. We're like, oh, everyone's gonna be fine. Everything's gonna be fine.
That was the funniest thing ever. It just
was not fine.
The terrible season.
I still don't think it's related. Like I don't think it means
No,
every
but,
future season. But it is ironic that we were all like, it means nothing, and then
it was so funny.
Yeah, that's a freezing cold take from our end.
I'm excited about Brown, though. I really am. I think when I first, like, anyone that sees the numbers from Seattle during his tenure should be nervous. I mean, Seattle's offense sucks.
It didn't get better when he was gone, though.
Correct.
And, I mean, look at the talent too. Like that's important, because he goes to Miami and they make the playoffs with him. And you look at that roster too, and you're like, that's not a scary lineup at all.
No. Absolutely. No, that's totally important. It didn't get better. And the other thing is too, the Mariners are an incompetent organization. I think that needs to be said if you're going to talk about them.
Hitting wise.
Yes. Pitching wise, they're great. They've developed some awesome pitching, but they have no idea what to do to develop offensive players. And when they finally do strike gold, like Julio Rodriguez, he regresses back-to-back years. So who knows what they're in store for him with a massive contract on the books. The point is, oh my gosh, I'm losing my train of thought. The point is, with personnel, the Mariners have shown a tendency to push people into the wrong positions. And it really does seem like they tried to shoehorn him into being someone he's not, doing like teaching things that he's not really wanting to teach, straying away from his personal philosophy and putting him into a role that is not designed for him. Yeah. So I hope the Cardinals are giving him a chance to just be himself here and do what he does best. And it seems like they are to this point. It seems like everyone's happy. Things are working well, which is important. The other thing is, this is about as good a position or as good a situation as someone in his position could be in, right? The pressure in St. Louis, not very high for Brent Brown, because he's potentially part of a lame duck managerial regime. There's a decent chance that Oli Marmol is out of the picture at some point in the near future, as much as we like our King Oliver. There's a decent chance he's not part of the future. Hopefully he is.
I think he is.
Happens. I'm thinking he is, but there's a possibility he's not. If that's the case, Brent Brown doesn't have a lot of pressure. He's part of the Oli regime as long as it lasts, probably. He also is following up Turner Ward, who really stunk. So just be a little bit better than him. It's not a terrible spot for him to be in. So I'm excited about it. I do think he's a good fit for the organization. And at the end of the day, if you don't like him, how are the Cardinals going to do any better with the situation they've got, with all the turnover at the front office level, all the turnover on the coaching staff, and the potential lame duck manager? It's not like they were going to be able to go out there and get the most sought after guys anyway. So I think this was a good hire for them. We've said that all off season. And I think hopefully if these guys are excited, like if he can work with Jordan Walker and find a way to unlock that potential, like that's amazing stuff. So I guess the only thing we can really do is be hopeful and hope for the best that it'll work. But I really am, I am positive about this. I feel really good.
Yeah. Just to keep on the same train of thought, and if you guys have any other likes or dislikes, I really liked John Jay and Daniel Descalso's presser, and clearly there's synergy between them. But John Jay, I mean, they didn't lose Willie McGee. He's just not going to be around full time anymore. But replacing him with someone like John Jay, I think was a really you still want Willie McGee there, but like Jay being that just barely removed from the game, a World Series champion, a guy who's about the fundamentals. I think he's going to relate to the players really well. Not saying McGee didn't, but John Jay just said in the chat, John Jay, future manager. Like him and Descalso both sound like future managers, and I think both guys are credit to Oli that the Turner Ward thing, that's its own deal, and he was there before. I think he was the assistant hitting coach before Oli was the manager. He might have come on the same year Oli became manager. But like the bench coaches, Descalso, Matt Holliday, Skip Schumacher, John Jay, Stubby Clapp, he wanted Yachty in the dugout. Like he goes after high quality leaders. And so I really like their mentalities, and that John Jay and Daniel Descalso seem like guys that are like, again, they're going to love on the guys. They're in their corner, but they're also going to really coach them hard and are going to try and make sure that they really bounce back. And I like what Descalso says. And as a former player, I think it's important. He's like, at the end of the day, the hitting coach and us as coaches are only helpful if the players are open up to us and if they're willing to listen. And if guys are stubborn or not, like they weren't trying to like be like, oh, like it's not our fault if things go bad, but they're like, it is on us to develop the relationship. But these players need to open up and be vulnerable and be ready for coaching. And I like that mentality they had. So I just want to say that. But any other likes or dislikes you guys had from Winter Warm-Up?
I do wonder if they're talking about anybody in particular who maybe hasn't been as receptive. I don't know if that's necessarily fair to assume, but or maybe Jay has dealt with players like that in Miami or whatever. But I think I enjoyed pretty much every interview that I was part of, except like the Mo one and then the DeWitt one, obviously. But it seems like everyone's motivated to do what they want. Like the players are usually not the issue with like the effort and whatever. It's just we need the team to be managed well, and I think that the team's in good hands with Oli. Like I was really impressed by his press conference today. I asked him how the catching situation will look. He didn't really answer me. He's just like, yeah, both of them are having good off seasons. And I was like, okay. I would like to have addressed that. We didn't get to hear from Ivan Herrera, unfortunately. I would have liked to see how, like, if he's on a throwing program or something like that. But I'm cautiously optimistic for the season. I think the players are all where they need to be, but I just don't know if some of the guys that need opportunities are going to get opportunities like the front office has promised.
Yeah. Sandy, anything else for you?
I think that's about everything for me from the event. It was a good event. I think there were a lot of solid takeaways, and I'm just happy to see the players excited about the year. I feel like there is more excitement around the team than there's been in years past. And I think that's the big takeaway. Yeah.
There's a lot. We've talked about all off season, a lot of variance. They could go poor. It could go poorly and they win low 70s games. But I really do think it's not like the 50th percentile outcome, but I don't think it's the 99th percentile outcome either that they win mid 80s games. Like I think it's in the range of outcomes, not necessarily the likeliest, but again, like I can see a real world where this team overachieves next year, at least based on what expectations seem to be. And I'd probably like the optimistic win total for me right now in my head that I'll toy with is like 85 win team, 86 win team. Because again, they won 83 last year, and what did they lose? Not much. And what they're really banking on is the offense gets better. And Goldschmidt was league average last year. And like, if Gorman, Walker, these guys, like you see the path that they could be good. It's just, no one should be like, this is what's for sure going to happen. It's just, that's the optimistic outlook. The pessimistic outlook is the guys don't figure it out and it goes poorly and they lose. They don't win as many close games as they did. And they're a 74 win team, 78 win team instead of an 83 win team. But yeah, we'll see what happens. The only other random thing or last thing, which we'll just continue to talk about till it happens, is the Nolan Arenado saga. It's just like, come on, like this is it's weird how much it's paralyzed them. That Mo is like, when he's asked about doing anything else, he's like, Arenado is objective 1, 2, and 3. It's like, we all know you can balance multiple things at once, and I'm not saying he's not, but it's just so weird to me that they're like in this hovering pattern until Bregman signs eventually, and then they could trade Nato. Like again, it goes back to the shopping starting pitchers. It goes back to going after sneaky relief pitching options. He talked about getting a right-handed bat with thump, but like he's like, we're not going to do that unless we trade Nato. Like I don't get why you have to be.
Or if it's Dylan Carlson, give him some opportunities.
I am really confident it's not Dylan Carlson. I will maybe bet my house on that.
But, yeah, I know. Dylan Carlson and Bader, though, are going to make the same amount of money next year unless he somehow signs a major league deal.
Hey, a team that has Harrison Bader's flow, Brendan Donovan's flow, and gosh, who's the other guy that has a flow? Oh, Quinn Matthews flow. That's an aura team right there. They need to bring back
Taylor Motter.
Taylor Motter on the bench. Yeah. Anyways, I think that covers most of my likes and dislikes. Michaelis. Yes, he does have a flow sometimes. So, also I'll just throw it in there too. Like, I really enjoyed the interactions we had with some of you that we got to run into at Winter Warm-Up. Obviously, we're pretty busy this weekend. It wasn't as spaced out as it normally is, so it's harder to be out and about. But again, I hope anyone who was there had a ton of fun. If you want to check out any of the interviews, Andrew did a great job of capturing those and posting those. So they're on our YouTube channel, the majority of the players and front office and ownership and coaches that spoke. So you can check those out. I think a lot of them are really insightful. So even if you check it out over the next few days, like I think they're all worth a listen. Yeah, it was fun to be there. Thank you to the Cardinals for allowing us to be there. And it's just great to rub shoulders with the other media and then to get a firsthand look at what the team's looking like this year. And hopefully the Nato stuff changes soon so that we can talk about something different. So, but Mo did say it could linger into spring training. So
great.
It could be a while. And he could even be here in July. Who knows? But
you think they could find a trade partner for Nolan Arenado at the deadline?
Could. Yeah.
I don't think they will. I think if Nolan Arenado is on the team on opening day, he's on the team all season.
Probably. I wouldn't rule it out that he's gone though. But I mean, like DeWitt and Mo said, it's not like Nolan's dying to leave. He likes it here. He just also thinks there could be a better option out there. So but apparently, I mean, Mo and DeWitt's both said like they don't have to move Nato's money. At one point, that seemed like the case, and now they're like, hey, if we don't move him, it's okay. So I guess there's been some reports out there that they may be interested in eating even more money than they were before to make it happen, which would also mean, and their hope is they would get something in return. Again, nothing special, but like not just 38th ranked prospect in the system player back, but like something. So we'll see. Maybe once Bregman signs, maybe something will happen. But as always, thanks to the 314 Sports Cards Collectibles. Thanks to Underdog for the partnership. Make sure you use our promo code cards for first time a pick'em and a free pick'em and up to $1,000 in bonus cash deposit offer. And then also like and subscribe helps channel a ton of support over the last few days on the channel. Really appreciate that. We released the top 10 games in Cardinals history of the 21st century recently. That's a fun video. All the interviews are up. Obviously, our podcast will keep going. Birds on the Farm, Kareem and Sandy are always holding that down. So yeah, a lot of fun stuff coming, and baseball is right around the corner. So things should be ramping up soon. So really appreciate all of that. So any last things from you guys on the way out?
Not too much. Just glad to see the players.
Yeah.
Well,
just glad to see the players excited, even if fans aren't excited, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I'm glad the Cardinals invited me. I appreciate them for that. And hopefully we'll be back next year at Winter Warm-Up with all three of us.
Yeah. So yeah, like and subscribe helps channel a ton, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, Nolan.